very good morning to you. Welcome to your world. And guess what it is? Today, July the 11th, is World Population Day. And as you are walking in, did you see my other guests who are walking out? And we had an all-female panel today. We were discussing issues of menstruation, which is interesting because it coincides with the theme of today's World Population Day, and that is gender equality. And with me in studio, I have three eminent panelists, and we'll put up that poster on your screen so that you get their credentials right. And with me in studio, I have Caroline Murgo, karibu sana. She is the Gender and GBV Advisor, UNFPA. We also have in studio a gentleman. You know, people kept asking, where are the men? They're here. Peter Nyakwara, he is Director, Technical Services and CPB. And we have Dr. Joyce M. Mutinda, Chairperson, National Gender and Equality Commission. And the last time I think we interacted was the Woman's Advisor to the President was hosting an event on the progress on two-thirds. Harriet Chigai. I think it was at Tamarind in Langata somewhere. So good to meet you again. And this time we're engaging along the theme of this year's World Population Day. And I will start with some data, because I was on the UNFPA website and I came across this data, and this sort of makes the case for why this conversation is important. And did you know that more than 40% of women around the world can't make decisions on sexual and reproductive health and reproductive rights, which is part of what we're discussing just before this. And as few as 1 in 4 women across low and middle income countries are realizing desired fertility. A woman dies every 2 minutes due to pregnancy or childbirth, and in conflict settings, the number of deaths is twice as high. Twice as high, which means what, every minute? Yeah, which is very troubling. And nearly 1/3 of women have experienced intimate partner violence and non-partner sexual violence, or both. And this astounded me when I came across this statistic. Just 6 countries, have 50% or more women in parliament in the globe, worldwide. Okay. More than 2/3 of the 800 million people globally who cannot read are women. So these are troubling statistics. But I'll start with you, Caroline. Perhaps you can tell us why, or at least shed some light on why you decided to go with this theme, if you're able to. I know it's made at a very high level, but why is this an important conversation?
Well, thank you very much. I think this is a very important conversation and a timely conversation. As you know, the world has hit 8 billion. And with 8 billion, you can imagine the number of women and girls. And those statistics are very shocking, because if half of the population or half of the world's population is left behind, then what are we really talking about? Are we moving forward? Are we developing? These are very critical issues that we need to address. And at 8 billion, it is time that we spoke the truth. We saw the interview with the previous panelists in terms of having issues of safeguarding issues of bodily autonomy, issues of agency for women and girls. So I think this is a very timely conversation, and the theme for this World Population Day is very critical, so that we need to critically and actually be open about some of the issues that affect us as a society.
Yeah. And I saw something, you know, a lot of mention of demographics, but we'll come to that. Allow me, ladies, first, given today's theme. Daktari, you know, hearing this information, how does it reflect on Kenya? I remember the last time we interacted, you are a woman who knows your numbers.
Thank you very much for having me this morning. I want to start by saying the numbers are disturbing. Really, they are disturbing. But when we come to Kenya, let me give you more numbers again. There is what we call the global gender gap. And the report is given to us every year, annually. And I must say, in 2021, Kenya was ranked at number 95 out of 156. Now, that was not good enough. And if you remember then, in 2021, it was just after we got the national government coming up with a gender policy. The national gender policy that we call Sessional Paper number 2 of 2019. So it had just been launched. And then Kenya undertook to do very good things. Come the following year, that is last year, 2022, we were ranked 57 out of 46. And we were all clapping because we climbed some 38 places. So we were doing very well. In fact, at that point, the president was even given an award because Kenya was doing very well in matters gender. Come 2023, you can guess from my voice, we are ranked at number 77 out of 146. We have gone down 20 places. And it is so disheartening when we are doing this against our neighbors. Our neighbors, that is Rwanda, and Rwanda is ahead of us. Burundi, in fact, Rwanda, as we talk, is at number 12 worldwide, globally. And when we talk of Burundi, at number 35. Even Tanzania, number 48. If we were in class, we would say they have beaten us. Now, what does this all mean? It actually means something has gone terribly wrong between 2022 and 2023. And we need to do something very urgent. And that is why His Excellency the President talked about the two-thirds gender principle being legislated. This is in our Constitution. And when we look at Article 27, Sub-Article 8, we realize it was supposed to have been legislated by our National Assembly to begin with. Some 6-7 years ago, 2015, that was when it was supposed to be legislated. It has not been done. And therefore, people are carrying on business as usual. With the patriarchy, we are now saying the women can stay at home, they don't have to go to school. We can beat them because traditionally you would beat a wife and put her in the where you used to sleep and not out there. And that is what is continuing. It is quite disturbing. So I would say there is need to do quite a lot. Other than what His Excellency the President has said, there are other things that we need to do and which are really challenges to us. And one of them is poverty. With poverty, we have just witnessed in the elections, women have not been able to come out to ask for those positions. They are not able to vie, not as many women as we expected. We have looked at the issue of lack of gender representation, and that is born out of that poverty. And remember, the poverty has deep roots. It is a question of the women do not even own the land that they till. The women are not getting the jobs because of lack of education at times. Even when they get these jobs, they are not at the decision-making level. And therefore, there is a lot that needs to be done, not only for those two, but also to culture. And let us remember, in this country, gender-based violence, we must kick it out by the year 2030.
All right.
And therefore, there is a lot to be done. The statistics are not favorable. Last year was better than this year. We need to do something. I wish to call upon our parliamentarians. Let us legislate two-thirds and move on. Okay. Thank you.
All right. She has made quite the passionate case for that. And Peter, now, we've come full circle to you. Peter is the Director of Technical Services, National Council for Population and Development. Now, when I was told, you know, you're hosting a show on World Population Day, and then I was told the theme, and then I was like, what does census have to do with gender? What is this conversation about demographics? What does gender have to do with it?
Thank you for posing that question. Really, today is a great day for us as a country and as the National Council for Population and Development. We are celebrating this day and joined with the UNFP and the partners. We also domesticated and agreed with the global team on the issue of unleashing the power of gender equality. This, if you look at the team, it links very well with our national aspiration, what we have now, the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, trying to uplift all in the economic status. That's why we picked this theme. And the second one of the things I wish to mention is that the team is related to population and development because the greatest resource of any country it is people. Countries which have developed, they have harnessed the power of their people. It's not the natural resources, not oil, gold, and diamonds. It's the human resource. That's where we have put a lot of emphasis. And when we are talking of human resource, we are referring to men, women, boys, and girls. Give them equal opportunities in terms of their potentials, their responsibilities. That's why this theme is very important for us. And really, what Dr. has mentioned, it's a concern, but when you look at Kenya over the years, you look at the demographics, there are those positive progress we have made. And we have to really appreciate it because of the good policies, strategies which have been put in place. And therefore, it has to really look, if you look at the population growth rate, the rate of growth, the population structure, Kenya is just is at a threshold to harness its youth potential. The rate of population growth has slowed down, and now we are starting to have a larger portion of our population moving to working age population. Then now, how do we initiate programs which will enable us harness the human capital, the youth population, what we call the demographic dividend of our young people. That's where we say harnessing the human capital is our focus. And if you look at the bottom-up agenda, that's the focus. We are focusing on education and skills development. We are focusing on the health and well-being of the population, and also governance issues and employment generation.
Okay.
That's why this theme is very important for us to create awareness and say, let us not leave anyone behind in terms of moving forward in development. And it also links with the SDG goal, leaving no one behind. We start with those ones who are at the bottom of the pyramid, and brief them up. That's why we are very keen on this.
All right. And, you know, we lost the late Tina Turner this year, and one of her songs, Caroline, was What's Love Got to Do with It? You remember it? And when I was going through your website, I saw a video on fertility. And I have to ask you, what does fertility have to do with it, this World Population Day? Because I saw data on fertility rates. Women are having what, having 2.5 children on average now. Less, previously I think it was 4.5. And when I was watching this video, and there were comments made by people about certain ethnic communities, poor people are having too many children, you know. Why does a conversation, and then at the end of the video you talked about the conversation should not be about how many children we're having necessarily, but agency, women having agency over their sexual and reproductive health.
Yeah, I think a lot of that has to also play in terms of how do you empower women and girls. Because, for example, when you're talking about agency, when women are able to determine the number of children that they have, then they're able to plan around their lives. As we said, we do not want to leave a majority of the population behind. We have women who have ambition. Daktari has just mentioned women who aspire for political leadership, women who would want to different career paths as well, you know, and also just be economically empowered. So them being able to determine the number of children that they want, then they're able to plan their lives better. And also times have changed. The world has changed. Living expenses have actually gone up. So when you have the number of children that you can comfortably take care of and also provide for those children in a holistic manner, then you're able to better the society. You're able to educate them, you're able to provide them health care as well, with the education, with the advancement that they want to do. So having women having that be able to determine how many children that they want. Some women also don't want children, so that is naturally okay, but you should be able to provide that platform or environment where women are able to determine how many children that they have. And this, and maybe I should mention that this does not, it's not only about women, but also how do we engage men as well, so that we are creating a safe space and we foster an environment of not resistance, but a safe environment where both men and women are able to discuss issues of family planning, discuss issues of sexual and reproductive health, issues that affect them. As a family, as individuals. So it's very important that we provide that environment and that environment for them to be able to determine their families, plan their families, and better their futures. Yeah.
All right. Dr. You've made the case. You've at least given us an idea of where we are, and you're saying we're not doing as well as we were doing previously. So, and you mentioned some of the areas where we need to pull up our socks. You've talked about 2/3. You're telling our parliamentarians, hey, it's about time. But what other gaps exist? What areas? What other areas do we need to pull our socks up in?
I think I started by talking about poverty.
Yes.
There is need to ensure that women can access resources. And these resources start right at home, at the family level. Do they even own land? When this lady is married, does she co-own the property with her husband? And when they acquire property, particularly land, where they are going to till this land to make some living, does the woman have a title deed to her name? Or does she even have a shared title deed? If it is property like a house, that has been acquired by the family so that they can get rent. Now, who keeps the rent? And in whose name is this property, even if she has contributed? And at times, women will contribute in kind. At other times, even men will contribute in kind. But when they have contributed, now, I would just ask our brothers, why is it that then it bears the name of the man only? I think the government should just come up and start giving title deeds to women.
Okay.
Because in the Constitution, there is nothing that stops a woman from owning that land.
Okay.
Even where she has been born, she is supposed to inherit her father and her mother. But you will find they are being disinherited. If there was a chunk of 10 acres, for example, and the kids are 8, it should be divided among all the children, not just the boys, not just the girls, but all of them, because they are independent. So the issue of poverty underlies quite a number of these issues. Now, this other poverty comes from access to job. Why do we find that women are not earning as much as men, even when they are doing the same job? In some companies, I will not say about central government, because in central government is equal pay for equal job. But in some companies, you'll find the woman will be paid slightly less. And the argument has always been, she will not be in the office much of the time. She will run and breastfeed. She will run and just what you have been tackling earlier on about menstrual hygiene and so forth and so on. But I keep on asking myself, and I want to ask everybody, does it mean it's only the woman who goes out? Men do not go out even to smoke? I've seen them do that. And many other things. So we're saying the women should be paid as much as men. They should also access the jobs. When women go for jobs, we have been treated to the affair of Kericho, where the women are supposed to pay in kind so that they get jobs. The men are not subjected to that. So that makes the poverty index for women much higher than anybody else. Okay. And again, with some of them not going to school, like a place we call Samburu, until now you find quite a number of girls are not going to school. Then you find they don't have the skills even to begin with, and therefore they can't access the job, and therefore they can't get the money. Now, that, I said, is an issue that needs to be taken care of, and doesn't seem to be taken care of very well. There is the government affirmative action, and we have several funds. There is WEF, Women Enterprise Fund.
Yes.
There is GAF, the National Government Affirmative Action Fund. Now, how much is that fund? How much is the woman rep given compared to other MPs? You find it is peanuts. It's pocket change. And she's supposed to do very many things with that. And she's supposed to take care of the entire county, just like the governor. So that access is lopsided. We need to tell ourselves, where do we put this money? And it matters budget. How do we budget to ensure that this does not come back to haunt us? Okay. Now, the last one I will talk about is culture. And I just want to mention the issue of patriarchy. We are in a patriarchal society where the woman is supposed to be in the kitchen, where the woman is supposed to be undergoing FGM, where the woman is supposed to be cooking, where, you know, she's seen as a beast of burden. All the burdens around the home belong to the woman. Now, that makes the woman not move ahead. Times have changed, and we need to change, even in this country. Let us enable our women. Because if we now took roll call, for example, our governors, lady governors, all of them got their economic empowerment in another setting. Allow me to mention, for example, Anne Waiguru. She was a minister, and that is how she made her money, and she's able now to go and fight with the men down there and beat them. Charity Ngilu was a minister. The same thing. When you talk of Susan Marire, an MP, when you talk of Kihika, a senator. So you find all these women, even Achali in Kwale, you'll find that lady was a deputy governor. Talk of Wavinya, CAS, in the Ministry of Transport. So they never just woke up one day and became. They were economically empowered. If we want women in decision-making positions, then we need to empower them economically. This economic empowerment, we need to rethink. Even if it is Hustler Fund, let us rethink how does it get to them. Thank you.
All right, and I've taken some notes, right? So even earlier, even in your first submission, you had talked about the link between poverty and leadership, right? Yes. The ability of women, as you just explained more now, to access leadership positions on account of the economic empowerment, ending GBV by 2030. These are some of the areas we need to address. The notes I've taken down. Even areas of land and property ownership. You talk about who collects the rent and whose name. Equal pay for equal jobs, and harmful cultural practices, another thing you've addressed now, and engendering budgets.
Yes.
Okay, but when we need to take a break, but when we come back from you, Dr. Mutinda, I'd also like to hear about female persons with disability, because you not only represent National Gender and Equality Commission, you not only represent just women, but also persons with disability. And also from you, Peter, what are the trends? Because this is what the president keeps on saying when he's talking about housing and all of that. And I saw that on the UNFPA website, and that is that 66% of the population will be living in urban areas by 2050. What are the trends where Kenya is concerned? And also, is that partly informed by climate change? People are no longer able to engage in the activities they used to before. And also, how does data help with the national planning? But first, children all around Kenya rely on water from unsafe sources. Colgate is asking you to help change this. Just a little water can make a big difference. For every pack of Colgate you buy exclusively at Naivas, you help build 30 water wells that will provide clean water for 120,000 Kenyans. Give a helping hand. Shop at your nearest Naivas store or online at naivas.co.ke. For more information about the campaign, go to Colgate Kenya's Facebook page or wellboring/colgate.com. Terms and conditions apply.
As a mother, I have to do my duties in the house. It forces me to send her to the river because I have no alternative.
Piaora ok ber, ler bedo ok ler. Otuo nikech piaora. Otuo ok odhi skul, japuonj chunye chandore.
If children had water close by, they won't be sick, they won't be distracted because the water is clean.
Do not hold back in any situation. Eno gets to work on the 6 symptoms of heartburn fast.
You do know you said all of that out loud, right?
If symptoms persist, seek medical advice.
Are you a Kenyan youth ready to unlock your true potential? Join us on the 14th and 15th of July 2023 at the University of Nairobi for the Skill Up Africa 2023 as we mark World Youth Skills Day and get the chance to gain insight on the skills that will shape your future and unlock your potential. Register now for free entry at kenyabuzz.com or call 0724 661 440 to explore 2 days of transformative experiences, empowering dialogues, and invaluable networking opportunities. Skill Up Africa 2023, unlocking the potential of Kenyan youth through skills development.
I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate the Nation Media Group and all the partners that will make providing sanitary towels to our girls, especially in the informal settlements and mission-based schools, free sanitary towels. So please join in and support this cause, because we know much as the government is providing a budget to provide sanitary towels, it is never enough. Let's end period poverty, let's give dignity to our girls, and let's make our girls go out there and not be ashamed of being on period, but being bold enough to say, I'm on my period and I have my sanitary towels. This will also help curb and end teenage pregnancies, because a lot of girls out there are being influenced to engage in sexual activity for sanitary towels. So let's team up together as a country, as citizens, to ensure we end period poverty.
You are watching Your World in association with Colgate.
Welcome back to Your World. This is World Population Day, and we are unleashing the potential of our population by way of gender equality. And on that note, I was just looking through my notes here, the UNFPA website, and these megatrends have far-reaching implications, and the trends will be told about by Peter here in a moment. They affect economic development, employment, income distribution, poverty and social protections. They also affect efforts to ensure universal access to healthcare, education, housing, sanitation, water, food and energy. To more sustainably address the needs of individuals, policymakers must understand how many people are living on the planet, where they are, how old they are, and how many people will come after them. Why is it important to have this data, Peter?
It's very important for us to have disaggregated data by sex, by the various socioeconomic attributes, to assist us to do targeted interventions. You remember what my sister Muru and what the doctor has mentioned, the issue of poverty. How do we address the poverty? And you were asking the question, how is it linked to fertility? One of the things for Kenya, that you give the picture of the global situation.
Yes.
Kenya in its 70s and 80s, on average, a woman had a life path of 7 children per woman.
Mm-hmm.
With the interventions now, it has reduced it to 3.4 children per woman, an average of 3 to 4 children per woman currently in Kenya. What does that mean in terms of development? It means a woman now can be able to play the role of reproduction and production. You have time to engage in economic production. The number of children you are able now to support them.
Mm.
That's the instance. But when you look at Kenya, the concern now we have is the disparities in counties. You go to central Kenya, you get the average number of children per woman is around 2, 3. But you go to, say, Mandera and those other areas, it is still high.
Mm.
Average number of children is about 6, 7. Now, tied with poverty. When you're at household level, how do you fit that? That's the conversation we're having. The second part is where we talked about the future is urbanization. Globally, we are urbanizing. Kenya is also experiencing rapid urbanization. Are we prepared to provide for this ever-increasing number of urban population? That's why you find that a large number of people who are coming to urban areas and there are limited opportunities, social amenities, end up in informal settlement. And that's why you see now the government putting a lot of emphasis, how do we provide housing so that they have that opportunity to live. That's the most important thing. Tied to that also regional disparity, Dr. also mentioned the issue of how do we provide for equality in terms of our population moving. The internal migration, our population, urbanization is mainly led because of migration to urban areas to look for opportunities.
Yes.
Then there is another element which is coming. We have been experiencing climate change over the years. And if we don't intervene now, the next front is on conflicts over resources because of environmental degradation. People are moving. We are going to have a large number of refugees, environmental refugees, because of climate change. And that's why we have to have programs, and how do we do it. And one of the initiatives which we have seen working is the linkages, integrated population and environment approach at the household level, where we empower the household to have their kitchen garden, to have plant fruits which can generate income. They have got firewood or green energy, and they have got a source of livelihood at the household level. And that's the approach which we have seen working out. And last year, NCPD, through partners, we were able to develop population, health, and environment policy guidelines. And therefore, we have started having, we coordinate, we are also coordinating agents. We have started coordinating. We have a national and county PHE network coordination where we bring partners on board, our government institutions, the private sector, NGOs too, really work towards climate change mitigation. I know the government has created a fund to address the climate change, the climate change action plan to implement it. There is also a climate change policy which was done since 2006. And what is there? We have policies. How do we fast track and effectively implement these policies? That's where we have got a challenge.
Okay. And Caroline, some of the statistics I read at the very start, and I was astounded, and it's only 6 parliaments have 50% women. So men, such as Peter here, Peter, still are the ones who, as Dr. Mutinda told us, have access to factors of production. You know, they're the ones who are meshikilia. And now the ones, majority of legislators are men. So how do we onboard them, convert them to now champions of this cause?
I think it's very critical that we we enhance our awareness and education campaigns, especially around strengthening our interventions on engaging men and boys, not only as allies, but also as partners and change agents. We need to have very candid conversations, even within Parliament. I think a lot of that has started, you can see with the Senator Oroba and her boldly going forward, I mean, talk about menstrual hygiene, that it affects us. Yeah. You know, that has gotten that conversation going within the Senate and male parliamentarians on how that it actually does affect everyone, and women and girls, and you have a part to play in it. When it comes to issue of the implementation of some of the policies that we have, we just mentioned here earlier during the break, we have policies, we have legislations that actually address some of these challenges that that we face, the discriminatory practices, the gender stereotypes. But what are we doing in terms of, yes, it's one thing to have laws and policies, but are we implementing? To what level are we implementing? I think we really need to strengthen institutions that are mandated to actually implement so that you ensure that the rights of women and girls are actually met. We have NGEC, for example. Their mandate is to actually coordinate and ensure that policies and legislative frameworks are actually implemented. I think one of the biggest challenges that we're having, how do we take that conversation to just developing these policies, and how do we take it to the ground and implement? But I think we need, and we cannot overemphasize, we need a lot of awareness, public campaigns, community dialogues, not only at the community level, but also dialogues at the national level, engaging men, what is their role? Because the more you create that awareness, the more you do that education, then they appreciate and see their role in terms of what is their role in when it comes to advancing gender equality. Issues of poverty, issues of climate change, I think it needs to be a conversation for everyone. We know that climate change and poverty affects women. They are susceptible to violence, whether it's GBV, harmful practices like child marriage and FGM, they're the ones who are susceptible. So if we really strengthen our male engagement component, and as UNFPA, what we try to do is work with government and also support our partners, including grassroots organizations, mostly women-led and youth-led organizations, to ensure that these conversations keep going. We are dealing with, if you're talking about GBV, FGM, and child marriage, these are cultural practices.
Yes.
And this require longer-term interventions. So we cannot, it's not a one-size-fits-all. We need to target it in all levels. We need to engage the cultural and religious leaders at the community level, who we know majority are men. We need to engage them as champions. And it's very important that I think as legislators need to take that mantle. They have families, they have daughters. I don't know what to what extent can we make noise or shout that we need, for a country to develop, we need to bring everyone on board. So I think for me, I just emphasize on awareness, education, and let's sit and have candid and open conversations around the issues that affect not only women and girls, but also men and boys, because they also face gender-based violence. They face a lot of issues. We now have the issue of, when it comes to employment rates in the country, most of the people who are affected are young people. We have educated population of young people. They don't have jobs. Most of them are turning to drugs and things like that. So how do we then have this open conversation and say, yes, this is the challenge that we are having as a country? How do we move the pin forward to say that, yes, now we are addressing issues of gender inequality? Kenya has come from very far. We've made strides. We saw that being highlighted during the ICPD 25 summit in Nairobi that took place in 2019 in November. We saw high-level political commitment from the government. We saw that as well in 2021 with the Generation Equality Forums, where the bold commitments were made to ensure that we move the needle and we move it from being stagnant to where we're able to say, yes, women and girls have rights. Women and girls have voices and agency to make decisions about their lives. And most important, that they do have support from their fathers, from their brothers. So that is very critical, and we need to have these conversations. And I think with Daktari here, we need to see how we can continue, because it started the awareness creation, having conversations with the parliamentarians, with Senate, with male champions. That is very critical if we are to be able to reach gender equality. Thank you.
All right, and when you talk about climate change and conflict and all of that, I was also thinking in terms of majority of small-scale farmers, you know, are women.
Yes.
It is women who are in the farm, so they're also the ones experiencing firsthand the effects of climate change. Dr. Mutinda, even as we talk about getting men on board, Pia Woko frontline, you know, you're here lobbying, you're trying to push our parliamentarians to pass the 2/3. What have you found works
in terms
of getting the male populace on board?
Let me say, thank you for that question. Now, I have come across the issue of it came in as boy child, that the boy child has been neglected. And I have had the opportunity to share a study that we conducted about the boy child, because those are just perceptions. And I want to repeat again, they're just perceptions. It's not the truth on the ground. The truth on the ground is different from one county to another. And if I were to give an example, for example, Kiambu, which is very near Nairobi, when children go to school, both boys and girls, in primary school, enrollment is the same. They do very well. Now, come to secondary school, you expect the girl child to go down and the child to continue. In Kiambu, that is not the issue. The boy child goes to the coffee plantation. The boy child comes to Nairobi to do some business. Therefore, you find many girls in Kiambu going on with education. This is not the situation, again, in Kajiado, which is also near Nairobi. You'll find it is the opposite. When it gets to secondary school, then the girl child goes, there is FGM, and she marries. And she can be married by an old man. And that is it. So secondary school, you find there are very few girls. So the issue of the boy child, it is not one size fitting all in this country. It is from one county to another. And we need to have targeted interventions. So with us at the National Gender and Equality Commission, we have shared this study even with the second lady of this country, our pastor, Dorcas. We have shared with the deputy president. I've actually personally given him the booklet to read so that we begin where it begins. And I think our brother here, Peter, talked about numbers, statistics. We need to go down, conduct research. NGC is expected to get to do research on status of the various interest groups, including the men, the women, persons with disability, all these groups. The last time we did a status report, and this was in collaboration with KIPRA. That was 2016, we published in 2017. That is on our website still, people can read it. And when you look at that status report, you realize that some things that we have kept on saying need to be done. There are very many recommendations, even for the education sector, for any other sector there is, and also for some arms of government. We have talked about what we expect from the executive, what we expect from the judiciary, and what we expect from everybody, basically. So the issue of the boys, let us tackle it from where it begins. Let us conduct real research on the ground in each of our 47 counties. The results will show us the interventions, what Peter calls targeted interventions, that we can put forward so that we rescue, if so to speak, whoever is sinking. It's not a competition between boys and girls, men and women. It is development for our country, and we should carry everybody forward.
And then I haven't forgotten the issue of PWDs and especially female. But Peter, on the issue of data and targeted interventions, where is Kenya? The other day we had the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics release the KDHS, you know, Kenya Demographic and Health Survey. And they give us the statistics. Do we take the keybooklet? Because it was a keybooklet. and the one I saw was written volume 1. You know, so I imagine their volumes. You know, do we stuff them somewhere in a cabinet? Or does this data actually inform interventions? If we say in Marsabit, maternal mortality is an issue, then we say then we need to put in place A, B, C, D to address that.
Thanks for posing that question. And the way I mentioned earlier on, we use data for decision-making, informed decision-making. Kenya as a country, we have done very well in data generation. We did the last census 2019. And out of the census, apart from those main monographs, we did 19 specific monographs on fertility, migration, gender, dynamics, education, and skill development, which now assist in policy formulation. The second part is also the DHS, Kenya Demographic Survey, which is a lot of rich data. And the bits of at the time is that now we are able to get the data disaggregated to sub-national level. If you look at KDHS, which was released recently by our cabinet secretary, it has data for all the 47 counties. And what KNPS and the partners have done is to distill that data. We have first fact sheets indicating the key indicators for each county. There's a fact sheet that summarizing for each county. The next part now, which NCPD is reading with other partners, is to do further analysis, to explain these numbers, come up with the policy briefs, come up with the occasion of application. If it's Kiambu, what's the data reveal? What are the priorities? Then now it can answer that question why. Dr. has mentioned that we need also have that the further studies to explain the why. That now come bringing the qualitative aspect of it. And that's what we support. And we, one institution cannot do alone. We need several institutions to come on board. We identify what are the key issues we are pressing for a particular sector. Then we undertake. Okay. But generally, the data we have used it like now, as we use the census data to revise our population policy, because it brought out issues. I mentioned this of childcare, this of headship of female-headed household.
Yes.
So we use that one to do policy and then do programming. Currently, we are finalizing the medium-term plan, MTP4, which is linked to the bottom-up economically transformative agenda. It is the basis of the data we are putting interventions, various strategies. That's how it is used. What Murugo mentioned is important to say that yes, we have for those data, we have for those programs. It's the continuous monitoring to guide interventions. That's what we need to strengthen, because we have the policy we implement, but we need cross monitoring to see how those interventions are working out.
All right.
The other part which is mentioned and I need to amplify was the Nairobi Summit on ICPD. The discussion we're having today, if you look at those 17 commitments, it falls about gender equality. The first commitment is on reducing teenage pregnancy, new HIV infections, and the gender-based harmful cultural practices and child marriages. That which is a gender equality conversation. There are other commitments which you are talking about, empowering the young people through education, skills development. How do we harness the youth potentials? So as a council, we are coordinating those 17 commitments, and every year we do a progress report, which is in our website. You can see the progress we're making. Okay. But we need to get the contribution of also the private sector, because they're also contributing towards those commitments, and really others. The important thing which also I picked from the discussion today is bringing men on board on the issue of gender discussion. It is not a women issue. And if what Murugo and Dr. are saying, we get male champions, especially the policy makers, to spearhead the gender conversation, we will go a wrong way.
Okay.
Because like you correctly mentioned, in the parliament, in the relative positions, like governors, there are only 7 governors. You go to Senate, how many were elected? You go to parliament, now go to the county assembly. The numbers start diminishing. If you can get those champions to push the gender equality, we will make very accelerated progress.
You know what they say, many hands make light work. Caroline, if you'll allow, there's still the question of PWDs that I had posed.
On what he was saying, so that we don't lose the point.
Yes.
Because we've always been put to task that some of these conversations we are having on data policy briefs, that it tends to be at a higher level, boardroom conversations. And one thing that we have to also emphasize is that as much as this data, yes, informs policy and programming, but when you're doing the policy briefs and you're translating that data and information to a level where someone at the community level can be able to understand and see, oh, I have a role to play when it comes to poverty reduction, education of girls. We need to be able to have that conversations with community members at the community level, because they also need to own the process. It's not just a government process or a county government process or a UNFPA process or a development partner process.
They know where the gaps are.
They do.
Yeah.
So what Nyakara and Daktari have mentioned is that we have targeted interventions. But one thing that we have to realize that these targeted interventions are actually in collaboration with community members. Because when we are developing, for example, we have one of the largest global programs, the UNFPA-UNICEF Joint Program on the Elimination of FGM, which has been implemented in Kenya since 2008. Through the processes and lessons learned, we've discovered that any interventions, if it is to work, for us to be able to now say that, yes, we are eliminating GBV, we are getting to zero FGM, zero harmful practices, and as well reaching that gender equality, we need the community members, everyone. It's a multi-stakeholder engagement. We need them to be involved and own the process. So we just don't want, it's not just at the boardroom level, because we can be here at NTV and we say about the DHS data that was brought out, the data, the policy briefs, but we do not show the picture of, and that's why as UNFPA we also engage grassroots organizations, women-led organizations, youth-led organizations. Then they're able to take this information and this data to the community and actually translate it in a way that every member of that society understands that they have a role to play when it comes to not only empowering women and girls, but also empowering the society as a whole.
A classical example is this week we are preparing for World Population Day and a celebration. Our county population coordinator, the whole of this week, have been having a community dialogue, intergenerational discussion on the issue of gender. And they're using the DHS data, they're using the census data. The same we did with Kirivi and the Kwara on the issue of the elderly person. You remember the issue of elderly person? So we use this data to have conversation so that we get on board all of us from the grassroots.
All right, Dr. Mutinda, I'm looking at my clock and I am on borrowed time. If you can quickly just address that issue of PWDs before we close.
Yes, thank you very much. Persons with disability, where we begin is with the laws and the policies. We have to check the policies. Are the policies existing? Are they in line with our constitution? Are they also in line with what Kenya has ratified? Now, if they are in line, and remembering our constitution, article, I think it's article 2, sub-article 6, where you find that whatever Kenya has ratified becomes part and parcel of the law of this country. And therefore, we want to be sure that there is a follow-up. The policy does exist. The legislation, international legislation does exist. We have the Africa Protocol for PWDs. We have the UNRCPD. But do we have our local legislation? My answer is no. It is sitting in Parliament. Again, I want to call on the parliamentarians to pass this. Honorable Asige has really been pushing for it. And it should not be to push for it. It's all of us. That is one thing that NGEC does, just to make sure the laws, the legislation, and then after the legislation is put in place, we make sure that then it is implemented by each one of us. For example, when I get to any building, including coming to NTV, I had to ask myself, if I didn't have legs, would I be able to get here from the parking lot? If I was able to get, what about from the main entrance? Would I be able to get to the studio? Those are things at NGEC we check. All these buildings. We are not architects, but we want to make sure that the architects remember that we have persons with disabilities. Now, the women with disabilities are worse hit, especially with SGBV, and let me stop it at that.
I will have you back, because today, my Tuesday show, AM Live, is really dedicated to women, and they weigh in on all issues, not just issues that affect women, because all issues affect women, whether it is water, cost of wafuta, electricity. So I will have you back, Daktari. And allow me to thank my panelists before I let you go. And with me in studio, I've had, should I start women first, men before? Mr. Peter Nyakara, Director, Technical Services, National Council for Population and Development. Dr. Joyce M. Mutinda, she is the Chairperson, National Gender and Equality Commission. And we've also had Caroline in studio, Caroline Murgo. She is the Gender GBV Advisor, UNFPA. And remind me to tell you this, Kenya, what if we told you that your smile can help those next to you. Colgate is helping provide clean drinking water so that our children have a bright future by staying in school. For every pack of Colgate that you buy at your nearest Naivas store, over the next 2 months, you're helping to build 30 water wells that will provide clean water for 120,000 people. Now that is something to smile about. And when a child has to help their family fetch water, there is no such thing as a day off. You can help us change that. Colgate is asking all of you to help support the future of our country, our children. Just like clean water, every little drop makes a difference. For every pack of Colgate you buy at your nearest Naivas store, you're helping to build 30 water wells that will provide clean water to 120,000 Kenyans. You can make a larger impact and help us help reach more Kenyans by donating via M-Pesa. Visit the Colgate Kenya Facebook page or wellboring.colgate.com website for more information. Terms and conditions apply. My name is Olive Burrows, and that has been your world. I will have them back. Good morning.